Hello and welcome to another video. Today um, I try to give you some hope. It's a real miracle. I can't explain. Um, I try to do it. Uh, it is a sign of God, and well, I know you have a difficult time in America because your country is targeted as a whole. You had a real democracy we in Germany never had. Our democracy was given. There was a democracy movement. It was 1848, but it was beaten after the First World War. We got a parliament, we got parties, we got a democracy, but it was given by the Pope, and we never had a real democracy. It's a fake democracy. But many politicians, when they start their career, they don't know. They are convinced that we have a democracy, and they go in, and then later they get blackmailed, like my father was. Well, I will tell you who he was, but I start here with this place. This place is kind of holy for me. Maybe it saved my life here. I had a job as a car driver, bringing people from the airport to their homes, and I bring them also to this airport. I had a car, a Mercedes-Benz German car. That was my car at the time. That was in February 2017. So this is all 3 years ago. And there was a hard hunting. Well, it was an awful hunting. They gave my boss money, and then, well, I got this job only because of this hunting, and I was getting this job because of that. So he had this car was full of devices, giving me pain, making me sleepy, and I needed this money so urgent because I want to build up my defense. I had to buy shielding material, all these things, and I needed this money. And I tried to keep this job. Normally, you quit, but I didn't. I had this job 5 weeks, and then after they realized they couldn't kill me with this job, so my boss dropped me out then after 5 weeks. Well, I just show you this place here. Yeah, this is here special area. You hear this noise in the background. This is a water supply for Frankfurt, and it is from this old time Caesar Wilhelm II. You know, the beginning of the industrialization in Germany about 1870, and they built up this water supply for Frankfurt, and it looks a little bit like Turkish or Constantinople, Byzantine. Well, it looks nice, and so the reason I went here, normally it was not allowed to go here, but I took this road early in the morning after bringing the first customer to the airport about 5-6 o'clock. Nobody was watching me, and I went here in with this car, parking here, take a nap. Well, I tried to get a nap here, but it was not easy. They were tricky. They came with mountain bikes after me. I didn't saw them. Because they had distance weapons. When I went out with a car for my customer, and I saw 3 men with a rucksack, and they came after me with their mountain bikes, maybe singing like "Stone faces don't lie, baby, when you're high." I'm sorry, I don't know if you like my singing, but I try to make some fun because the other part of the video can a little bit be cruel. But I will warn you, I will raise my hand when it becomes cruel. Um, I was here taking a nap 1 hour, maybe 1.5, and then I was ready for the fight. It was a real fight, and I went to this place. I was last time at the airport, this place where all the taxis are standing. Every time I had a long distance, a route to Mannheim or to Heidelberg, south of Frankfurt, there came a helicopter standing above me. I heard this rotor, the doof, 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 and then I slain, praying to my God, help me to stand this, to survive this, and they praying also to their iron God, today we gonna get him, but they didn't. Well, I just check if this camera's still, it is, and there was always a lot of shooting, cars around me. On that highway they tried to kill me maybe 4 times. I survived all. It was a real miracle. One time they got me hard. I had to check customers, businessmen, brought them from Mannheim to the airport. It was 1 hour driving, and they came with cars, and they were standing cars on a side stripe. It was like walking through the fire, and so cars coming on the left side and giving me fire, and then one beam was, I was sleeping while I was driving, and then a few seconds and I woke up and I thought, well, maybe I'm dead now. I was looking down. No, my body is not smashed. My customers were talking, so lucky me, they didn't saw that I fell into sleep. But it was so hard to stay awake because this beam was so strong. It was in the car, and also beside me, this cars on the side stripe, and cars came beside me while I'm driving, and I brought them to this airport, this two Czech businessmen, and then afterwards I went to a fuel station for a coffee, and I was my whole body, I was wet, and I went out of the car. There were gangsters, and a woman was laughing like a witch, and I was thinking, well, my God will destroy you for this. But that time I was not able to raise my fist. I was just going to this fuel station for a coffee, and then my boss was phoning me, was annoying me. Well, yeah, you have to come immediately. Come, why you are not here? So, yeah, he was part of this attacks, and they realized that they couldn't kill me. Then after 5 weeks, he dropped me out from this job, earning all this money from the intelligence community. I can't tell his name here, of course, but it was a Turkish man, and you know, Turkish people, they are used to obey, and they don't ask much because it's in their education. You have to follow the law of your father, and it's also in their religion called Islam. I won't go into this detail. I did it the last time when I was talking about this Denver airport. There's a picture. Yeah, you can see this film also if you don't have seen it. Well, okay. I think I will quit here because they're giving me a little bit fire here. It's not easy here to talk because they're hitting my speech center. They do it always when I try to make a film. So I will take another place. I tell you more, and in the end of the film I will tell you who my father was without telling his name, but you will know who he was. I will tell you stories and you will recognize him. Okay. Welcome to the second part of my film. This place is better. Not so many cars near me, and this time I have my hat on that protects me a little bit. how to start? Well, I must say I have different fathers. Well, there was a social father, died already, and I want also to honor him. Then there's a real father. I know since January, so 3 months ago, that he was my real father. Of course, there's a Holy Father that saved my life so many times. Uh, well, I start with my social father. Well, of course I can't tell his name. Uh, well, I must honor him because he gave me some tips. He laid some traces that I could find out the truth, who I really am. I remember that he didn't like the church because he had an evil father, and his father was turned to a Satan in this church. Satan was already in the church at that time. It was in the 20s, the last century, in Hamburg, and he tortured his sons and he beat them. Well, it was an awful father, but he was officially he was a good Christ. He went into the church, and the pastor was smiling him and playing a good Christ, and then afterwards he said, well, give them hard, treat your son hard. Well, it was, in fact, it was not a Christ, and Satan was already in the church. So my father hated the church, and he was mocking about the pastors, the Protestant pastors. He saw them at the Greek restaurant, and they really had a behavior like a priest, like a Catholic priest. They were drinking wine, smoking, eating, and afterwards some ouzos, so that is strong alcohol, Greek alcohol. And he was always mocking them. Well, they are good pastors sitting every evening at the Greek restaurant, and well, he hated the church. One day he said to me, do you know who's that woman on the bull? Well, I was thinking, well, at school I learned, yeah, it is Europa, so Europe, or Europa, sitting on this bull that is Zeus, and he brought her to Europe. And well, he said no, it is the church who rides the state. What? I thought by myself, what a moron. I was last Sunday, I was at church, and there were nice pastors, and after the worship there was coffee and cake and all the nice people. How can they ride a state? I thought this man must be crazy, what a moron. But today I know he was right. He knows the secret, but he couldn't tell me. He was too afraid. He was also blackmailed. Well, he laid some other traces for me. He said many times, you are not my son. Sometimes he called me a Satan. Well, he never came over that his first born son was a bastard. And he hated me also. Later in my youth we become a kind of friends, because one day he remembered that his mother was a real Christian, Bible-believing Christian. He said maybe himself, well, it is not his fault that this all happened, and I can blame him all the time. But there was a time, there was a lot of hate between us. I remember the first time when God showed me his existence. We were on a holiday in the south of Hamburg. There were, you know, this Erica was this flowers, Erica, and there was all violet fields, and there were bee basket, and there were many bee basket. I was a young boy, 5 years maybe. I went to this bee basket, and my mother was warning me, don't go too close. I go close, and nothing happened. The bees, I showed respect, I don't come too close. And then my father, he was a photograph, and hobby photograph, and I must make some pictures of this bee basket. Then I went back and he went to this basket, and he come closer to this basket. He didn't saw that there was a black cloud above him, and suddenly this cloud went down. It was like a hammer, and he ran, and he ran so quick, and this beast behind him, well, and I was looking, wow, this is amazing. I was close to this beast, nothing happened. He came, and I thought by myself, well, there must be a force that protects me. My father did evil things. Well, it's not easy talk about. Maybe another time. Well, it is just that I thought, well, if there's a force protecting me, and well, I was that was a great victory for me. I later he tried to make a photo. I took a hand of sand. I stand in front of him and shooting all the sand in his face, in his camera, and he was shouting, "Ah, you evil son! Why are you doing this?" I was so impressed by this beast, and well, I think it was the first time that God showed me that He's protecting me. Well, and well, but my father, he laid so important traces for me, and he had such a bad conscience that he wanted to tell me the truth, and then he said, well, there are things, but I can't tell you. I'm not allowed to tell you. What do you mean? I mean, I can't. I had no. I had no idea what he's talking about, and now I know. But well, maybe I talk something about my real father. I didn't know. Since 3 months I know it, and the amazing thing is I start to make all these films about electronic torture to help other victims, and I didn't know that he was my father. It's quite amazing. Well, it must be a sign of God. I tell you something about him without telling his name. You know, there was a flood in my hometown, Hamburg. It was in 1962, before I was born, and there was a interior senator or a police senator. I think at that time they called it interior senator. That was my father. In this flood, 315 people died, and he was the crisis manager of this flood, and he did great things. He organized all this the help, and I think he saved many lives, and the people they were so impressed that they adored him so much, and the Antichrist was impressed also, and he saw that my father has good qualities. He can organize. Well, you know, the war, Second World War, hardened him, and I read he was around Leningrad, and he hated blood. I know. He must to build the ring, you know, you must build a ring as a soldier. You know, children. Yeah, you know, war is evil, and you are forced to do evil things. You know, they dying, they starving children, women in this town. You have to build the ring. I know he hated blood, and but in this war, maybe he learned some skills, and well, he had good qualities. And after seeing so many cruel things, he wanted to save people. Maybe in this time, he had a great success, and well, the Antichrist saw this, and he thought by himself, well, this man we must have him, but he has a strong will, his righteousness, He hate blood, he hate to lie. How can we get him? We built him a trap. This trap was my mother. My mother was trained many years for this mission. I can't tell you about this treaty. I was not born at the time, and I can't go into this detail, but I say it with the Bible. I found some places in the Bible how I can explain this without telling it directly. Well, my father was an important person. In the word of the Revelation, he was one of the 10 horns. In that time, you had this horn named Jimmy Carter, who was in the 70s, and they were colleagues. And he had wear a hard cross. There was this rebellion in my country. Well, let me check if the camera is still doing its work. Yeah, it seems so. Well, there was a rebellion. The generation after Second World War, there were a generation, they were so upset about what their fathers did in the Second World War. And there were questions like, how many youths you killed? Did you enjoy it? Have you shot many people? Have you killed many people? Or the Russians, you know, this Russian war was cruel. They burned also children and women. It was not a clean war. It was not that only the SS made these crimes. It was also done by the Wehrmacht. And well, my father saw this all, and and he hated it. I know it. And yeah, they asked their fathers, "What have you done in the Second World War?" And they were so upset, and they said, "If there's a system that made our fathers to murders, transform them to murders, we have to fight the system, and also with guns, with weapons." There was starting first at 68. This movement was starting peaceful. Then the majority kept peaceful, but there was a minority that split up from this movement and decided to take guns in their hands. And the Imperia, my father had to serve. His name was Pietro Arup. He was the Black Pope at that time. He was from Basque, like the guy who founded this Jesuit order. Name was Ignacio de Loyola, same country, Basque. It is in the north of Spain. He said to my father, I feel a great disturbance in the power, like in the Star Wars film. Destroy them. My father, he had to do what he was told. They built them also a Death Star. It was a great prison near Stuttgart called Stammheim, and they brought the first generation of this group. It was called Red Army Fraction. There was also in Italy such a group called Brigade Rossa. Well, this Stammheim was cruel. They were destroyed by isolation. It was not a normal prison, but my father had to mock them. He was in the Bundestag, in the Parliament of Germany. It was at that time it was in Bonn, not in Berlin. It was in Bonn. And he said in this Bundestag, Mr. Bader, you know, jailhouse is not a grand hotel, and we won't touch you with glacé gloves. No, we won't. Then there was the hijacking of a plane. It was on the 13th October 1977. It was a Boeing 737, and there were 4 members of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. There were passengers hitchhiked. It was maybe 200, 300, I don't know. So this plane was hitchhiked. It was the Landshut. They brought it to in an African country. It was a flight from Mallorca to Germany, but they changed the route. They forced the pilots going to Africa. Mogadishu was the town, and I don't know the country. I think it was Somalia. I don't know exactly. So then one of the goal was to get this prisoners of Stammheim free. So Andreas Baader, Gudrun Ensslin, Ulrike Meinhof, and also another woman, I think her name was Irmgard Möller. She was the only one who survived this night. There was a storming of this machine. My father took all this responsibility for this operation, and well, the declaration of withdrawal was already written for the case that this storming would come out as a failure, but everything was fine. All passengers were saved. 3 members of this Palestinian group were killed. 1 survived. Well, everything was fine as well. It was such a great success. My father was also celebrated for that, and well, that's it. Well, he stayed in the office, and but then later he lost the election. Then later, and then there come another horn. Well, it's amazing that so many things went fine, and somehow the Antichrist know that yeah, there's a God that does a little bit for us because it's the God of Israel. Yeah, it's the God of Israel. My father was 25% Jewish. My mother also. My mother, I knew it some years longer. I remember I visited my grandmother near Stuttgart, Baden-Württemberg. Well, you know, many people think, well, the south of Germany is all Catholic, and but it's not true. It is because the American GIs, mostly they were in Bavaria. Of course, Bavaria is Catholic, and it is the headquarter of the Zionist Order in Germany. But there's also another part. The southwest was Protestant. The king of Württemberg, he chose the Reformation. This is also the reason why so many inventions were there, like the Mercedes-Benz was there, was unter Türkheim, Mercedes-Benz, and the most used gun in the First World War was the K98. It was the carabiner with the 5 bullets, the stripe with the 5 bullets. It was a great invention, and every army in the First World War had this gun. It was also developed in this Württemberg country because the people were very clever, because they had access to the Bible. Well, I visit my grandma. My mother was also there. I listened what they were talking. I made myself quiet because I was in the kitchen. They were in the living room, and I felt there's something important they're talking about. Yeah, my grandmother said to my mother, you know, they came to me when I was a child and they said to me, don't let the ewe go into your house because the ewe is a salesman. Don't let the ewe come into your house. Well, and they said it not only one time, many times. And in the south, in the Württemberg country, the people they don't speak directly what they mean. It is a little bit, we say, speaking through the flower. And the men, what they wanted to say, my grandma was, your father was a Jewish brush maker, and you are a Jewish bastard because in that time my grandmother was created, her husband was in this French war, and you know, the West Front, and he was not there. So the mother of my grandmother, he had an awful man, betrayed his woman with other women, and raping his daughter because he knew that she was a Jewish bastard, and also abusing both daughters. She had also a sister which had not this black hairs, and well, she was quite beautiful, and there was a man felt in love. Well, he loved her black hairs, and well, he decided to marry him. He was a professional soldier in the Wehrmacht. You know, a professional soldier, served in Hitler's army, and then all voices. He married my grandmother, and then all voices mute. He was a man of God, and well, I remember he visited once my family in Hamburg, and he said, well, this house, why don't has this house a map for the feeds? So he bought this map from his own money and give it to this house, well, without any demandings. He just paid it from his own money. I mean, who would do this today anymore? I think nobody. But he was a real Christ, and well, I owe him a lot. Well, he was telling me about this creation of God, and I remember one time I was in a forest with him, and there was a hill of ant, and well, I saw this ant hill, and I asked my grandfather, well, maybe we can put a stick inside this hill. Normally my mother did when she was there in the forest with me. Then she said to me, well, normally it's not allowed, but just to show you, put the stick in. All this cows and the ants were running and so, and well, and I asked my grandfather, maybe put a stick inside this hill, and no, we won't do this. He took a sugar, and then he feed this ants, and well, I must cry. Later they killed him because they saw that he's helping me, and they killed him when I was 5. How was it happened? He went in a hospital, and then it was just a week, and then after a week he was dead, and it was so quick. I felt that there's something wrong. When later I found this comic, Alberto Rivera. He said, well, the Freemasons, they're running all hospitals here in Germany. Well, sometimes I think when my times come, I go better here in the forest, die there, because when I go in a hospital, they will kill me too, I guess. Well, they are controlled, and there's always a willing servant. that follow the orders. And well, there's no better place to kill somebody like in a hospital, because you know, they all these doctors and nurses trying to help the people. Nobody would assume that there are assassinations, but they are. I know it. So my grandfather went in a hospital. After 1 week he was dead, and it was a big hole in my life. It was a great loss for me, and but he showed me so many things I kept in my mind. So this helped me also to survive all these things. And well, I go back to my father. Um, well, the Antichrist was so impressed that he decided, well, we need this man. The people adore him, they trust him, they follow him. He was the man he wanted to have, and well, but how can we tie him? How can we tie him? Well, the emperor said to him, well, you know, we have your son, that is me, and they showed him pictures of me when I was a young boy. My mother took these pictures, bring it to her Freemason boss. She was a nurse working in a hospital. She gave these pictures to this Freemason boss she had, and then he gave it to the Secret Service, and then they give it to my father. And well, it was really awful, because yeah, he felt in love with my mother, and he don't want that they do me any harm. Later, when he left the office, they tried to kill me. They tried to do it with microwaves. There was a time I was about 13 or 14. I was so sick, and I came back from school. I was laying down on the bed, and then I slept so deep that I thought I will die. The doctor I went, my mother told me years after years, he thought that I would die. 30% of my blood cells were destroyed. I was totally pale, weak. I was so sick that also my teacher asked my mother what is wrong with this boy, but well, normally you got, excuse me, I have to check. Well, normally you got maybe a cure with oxygen, but not me. That was not the plan. The plan was we need this boy as long as my father is in the office, and then when we don't need him anymore, we will kill him. But God prevented it. He saved my life many times, also that time. Well, well, how was a trap? I found a place in the Bible. It is about King Salomo. Well, well, my father was also 25% Jewish. His father was a half a Jew, and the father of his father was a Jew. He was also a cuckoo child, like my grandmother, the mother of my mother. Well, I think, well, God must know that what the devil was planning, and he spread the semen of his beloved people under the German women, that some will survive the Holocaust. And well, it's a miracle. Well, my father said later in an interview that yeah, he was glad that his father was not seen, because officially he was Irish. Well, also my grandfather proved that his wife is Irish. Officially she was the daughter of a German man, and he brought all these documents, so then then they could marriage, and well, it's a miracle that they escaped. Well, I found a place in the Bible. You know, this the King James Bible. The English is somehow difficult to read for me because sometimes it is not you, it is thou or thee. I don't know. I try it. It is the Book of Kings, the first Book of Kings, chapter 11. But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, and Hittites, of the nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel, Ye shall not go in to them, neither shall they come in unto you. For surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clave unto this in love. And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. For it came to pass, when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with the Lord his God, as was the heart of David his father. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of Sidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. And Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord, and went not fully after the Lord, as did David his father. Then did Solomon build an high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, and the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. And likewise did he for all his strange wives, which burnt incense and sacrificed unto their gods. And the Lord was angry with Solomon, because his heart was turned from the Lord, God of Israel, which had appeared unto him twice, and had commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not go after other gods, but he kept not that which the Lord commanded. The son of Solomon did likewise. The name was Rehoboam. There was before him, he was another son of Solomon. He only reigned a short time, but then came Rehoboam. It is chapter 14, verse 21. And Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, reigned Judah. Rehoboam was 41 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem. Verse 21. And Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, reigned in Judah. Rehoboam was 41 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city which the Lord did choose out of all the tribes of Israel to put his name there. And his mother's name was Naamah, an Ammonitess. And Judah did evil in the sight of the Lord, and they provoked him to jealousy with their sins which they had committed above all that their fathers had done. For they also built them high places and images and groves on every high hill and under every green tree. And there were also Sodomites in the land. And they did according to all the abominations of the nations which the Lord cast out before the children of Israel. You know, that was really a crime. It was such a sin. Um, you know, were they came from Egypt, and the God of Israel, he did so many wonders for them. They were 40 years in the desert of Sinai, and the Egypt army went after them, and they had to fight, and they had nothing. They were slaves in Egypt. It was a miracle that they survived in this desert 40 years, and sometimes I think, well, why I can do this fight. Maybe because one of my ancestors was also in the desert of Sinai. They had to fight, and it was a military masterpiece. The Egypt army, they had all these heavy weapons, the modern weapons at that time, and they bring them into the desert, and you wait until your enemy is weak enough. Then they were faster, and they know they will die if they don't win. There's also another miracle I want to talk. You know, they wanted to have totally control over me, and they did this trauma-based mind control. I must raise the hand now. You know, you lay down on your back, and they scare you to death, and they you really think that this is the end, you will die, and they did it so many times. I was only 1 year or 2 years. I can't remember all, but at that time I learned to leave my body. Well, there was one moment when I was split into pieces, when I recognized the face of my mother. They used my mother also to split my mind, to make this mind control perfect, and I was broken in many pieces. I need 40 years maybe to get a human. So I was, yeah, it was like the people of Israel. I was, I was 40 years in a desert, and God saved me. There was also Jesus Christ, and this trauma-based mind control, it sounds cruel, but it was God's plan. I can leave my body in less than 1 second. I can split up all this pain, and I can forget this pain. The pain comes, the pain disappear, and maybe this is the reason why I can stand this pain and this torture, making all these films. Well, I was complaining many times to God, and I asked him, why he's punishing me so hard? What did I wrong? But now I don't complaining anymore, because I understood. I understand now his master plan. Well, it was a trainee. It was a trainee for this mission I do now. It must be his master plan, and it was a great surprise that I had ancestors that fought in this desert of Sinai. Well, you know, this torture is not such evil. The pain of the soul, this fire in the soul, is much harder. It's so hard to lose your own mother to this devil. And I found also a place in the Bible that fits my life somehow is so strange that I have to read it. Well, when I found out that who's my real father, it was like in this Star Wars film. It was just like I was seeing this proof. I will show you the proof later. Well, I was seeing this proof, and I was in my apartment, and I went up and I said, no, no, no way, that it can't be. It's impossible, like in a Star Wars film. Then I went back to this monitor, and it came over my lip. I will never work for the Emperor. It was like in the film. And surprise, I have also a sister, like in this film. And now I know they took it from me and my father. They were so impressed from the story that they made a film of it. It was also in the 70s, the first Star Wars film. Well, I apologized to my sister what my mother had done. I wrote a letter, but I guess this letter never arrived her. They catch this letter away. I apologize. It was not my fault, but as the son of my mother, I apologize what my mother brought over her family and over her father, also over her. Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, I know where she lives, but I never will go there. It would be too dangerous. She would get in trouble. I can't do this. Well, okay, I read her. It is a place in the Bible, in the Revelation, that fits so perfect that I had to read it many times, and it's unbelievable. But well, I read it, and then I will close this video. That was the hardest video I ever made. Revelation chapter 12. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. Well, this is Semiramis, the queen of heaven, queen of Babylon. It's a symbol. Well, John wrote this almost 2,000 years ago. Well, I start again. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was already to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. Well, I can remember my birth was also quite heavy. My mother, she knew that the child was not the child from the man who she was married with. Well, of course, he had no chance. She had only eyes for this one man she adored, and my social father, he was only used as a host. Yeah, they thought, well, we look for a dumb man that we can use, but they underestimated him because he gave me so many traces and he had a own will. Well, they underestimated him. He gave me also enough force to stand this fight here. And well, this mission was a failure for the Antichrist. Now they fear my videos and well, I can't believe it. Am I this person with the iron rod? I don't know. I have the feeling that there are more people seeing my films that I can see in this YouTube statistic. Well, I realize that many people recognize me, they smile at me, and I see the hope in their eyes. Maybe there were others like Luther or maybe Oliver Cromwell. Maybe there were others like in this. Maybe it is not me, but it is somehow so perfect. My birth was so heavy. I was the ammonia sac was already broken, and my mother decided not to go to the hospital so that her problem would be solved. I was there for hours. Then in the evening she went into the hospital, but I was nearly dead. I was so weak. I had so much suffocation. You know, I speak sometimes slow. It is because I had a big brain damage at that time. Well, you know, there was a lack of oxygen during my birth, and well, but I survived it, and well, it's a miracle. Well, I think I must close. Hello, I apologize. My crying yesterday. Well, I forgot to tell you about the proof. How you can find my father on the internet. Well, you look for this upper part of my face um, and the eyes and the nose. Well, also the ear, maybe somehow similar. I think 80-90% the shape and well, okay. I show you the ear. You will find uh, my father.